I had just come back from a short trip, and I heard everything from the doorway. That's when I knew. He was never planning to stay. Please stay with me as I tell you my story, and don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. The house was quiet when I pushed open the door, my suitcase still in hand. I wasn't supposed to be back until Monday, but something unsettled me all weekend. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I just missed home. Maybe I missed him. But the moment I stepped inside, something shifted in my chest. I froze when I heard Marcus's voice, light, carefree, laughing. He was on the phone, in the study. I moved slowly, staying just out of sight. I hadn't heard him laugh like that in months, and then I heard it. Once she signs over the last asset, I'm done. She'll never see it coming. My heart stopped. I stayed there in the hallway, my feet glued to the floor, my ears strained, hoping I'd misheard. But then he laughed again, low, satisfied, like he'd already won. I've been lining this up for a while now. She thinks I'm just stressed from work. Can you imagine? She'll cry, sure, but I'll be out clean. No mess. My hand clenched around the suitcase handle. My heart thundered in my chest, louder than his voice, louder than anything. He had no idea I was home, no idea I was listening to every word he said, every lie, every plan. My eyes burned, but no tears came. Not yet. My mind raced, flipping through every little moment from the last few weeks. The way he encouraged me to take a break, how he'd kissed my forehead and told me to relax, how he'd smiled that empty smile as I packed my bag. I thought he was trying. I thought he still loved me. But standing there, I realized he had played me. Every moment had been calculated, every soft word rehearsed, every gentle touch meant to distract me while he stripped away everything we built. I stepped back quietly, not making a sound. I didn't need to hear any more. I didn't want to. I walked back out the door, suitcase still in hand. My heart was shattered, but something inside me had shifted. He thought he was the only one with a plan. But now, it was my turn, and Marcus, he was the one who'd never see me coming. I closed the door as quietly as I could behind me, my hands trembling, my chest tight, with something between heartbreak and disbelief. I stood there in the hallway for a moment, staring at nothing, the sound of Marcus's laughter still echoing in my ears. It was like I'd stepped into someone else's life. My fingers twitched around the suitcase handle, my mind trying to process what I'd just heard. But instead of tears, a strange, unsettling calm began to settle over me. I walked to the guest room, his least used space, dropped my bag, and sat down on the edge of the bed. My heart was still pounding, but my face was dry. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because the pain was already changing into something colder. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling, and suddenly, the memories started coming. Marcus handing me the tickets for the trip, smiling as he said, "You need this, babe. Just relax, clear your head. I've got everything under control here." Marcus, brushing off my questions about our joint investments, saying things like, "You don't need to worry about all that, Amara. I've got it sorted. You just focus on your career." Marcus, making me feel stupid when I asked to see the documents before signing them. "It's just standard paperwork, nothing complicated. You trust me, don't you?" Over and over again, I saw it. The pattern, the slow, calculated erosion of my involvement, my awareness, my security, and I had let it happen. I had called it love. I had mistaken his control for protection. I had convinced myself that staying quiet was what a supportive wife does. But tonight, the illusion shattered. I stood up slowly and walked to the mirror. My reflection looked pale, tired, unfamiliar, but my eyes were clear now. I didn't see the same woman who had left on Friday, hoping her husband missed her. That woman was gone. This version of me, she was done being lied to, done being blind. I reached for my phone, opened a new note, and typed, "Bank accounts, lawyer, asset list, surveillance." It wasn't rage that pushed me forward. It was focus. Marcus thought I'd fall apart when he left, but he had no idea the kind of storm he'd just unleashed. If he wanted a clean escape, he should have picked someone else. Because now, I was wide awake. The house was dark by midnight. I listened to Marcus's breathing from down the hallway, slow, steady, the kind of sleep that only comes when someone feels safe and smug. He had no idea what I had heard earlier. No idea the version of me he kissed goodnight no longer existed. I waited until the clock struck 1 a.m. before slipping out of bed. My footsteps were silent as I made my way to his study, a room he always kept locked when I was around. But Marcus had gotten careless, maybe too confident. Earlier, I'd noticed he hadn't turned the key all the way. The door creaked faintly as I pushed it open. My fingers shook, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of truth I knew I was about to uncover. The study was exactly as I remembered. Clean, meticulous, every document stacked like he had something to prove. I moved quickly, opening drawers, scanning folders. Most of it looked normal until I found a red file tucked behind the others. No labels, just plain red. Inside were papers that turned my stomach. Business contracts, fake ones, with forged signatures and inflated values. Then I saw an email thread printed out, dated nearly 4 months ago. My breath caught. It was from a divorce attorney. Subject: finalizing asset strategy before filing. I stood there, frozen, rereading the thread over and over. He'd been planning this long before the trip, before the sweet kisses, before the "I just want us to heal" lies. I kept going. I opened his laptop. No password change. Fool. I clicked through recent files and browser history. He'd researched how to hide marital assets. There were transfer records, new accounts. Then I found one, under his name only, with half of our savings gone, transferred quietly, in small chunks, hidden, right in front of me. I didn't cry. I took photos of everything, every file, every document, every message. I moved carefully, methodically, like someone who had rehearsed this in her mind 100 times. I backed up the photos to a hidden cloud folder. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it. By 3 a.m., I was back in bed, pretending to sleep beside him. His arm was draped over me, his body warm, but I felt nothing. Let him dream. Let him think he still had control. Because starting tonight, I had my own plan, and he was no longer the only one moving in secret. The following afternoon, I sat across from a woman whose eyes didn't flinch. Her name was Tola, recommended by a quiet friend who once went through something similar but never spoke about it in public. Tola's office was tucked in the back of a commercial building, far from anything Marcus would ever stumble across. Every step I'd taken to reach her door had been calculated. No digital trail, no paper, no clues. She listened in silence as I laid everything out: the overheard call, the fake contracts, the secret account, the lawyer email. She didn't blink once. When I finished, she leaned forward and said in a firm but calm voice, "You can't let him know you know?" "Not yet." I gripped the arms of my chair. "But he's planning to blindside me. And that's exactly why we can't rush," she said. "Emotion gives him the advantage. Planning gives you power." We spent the next hour building the foundation of my own escape. Tola explained that with enough evidence, we could file to freeze the joint assets before he had the chance to move more money. But timing was everything. If Marcus suspected I was aware, he'd accelerate his plan, hide the rest, maybe even turn violent. "You're going to have to play the part," she said. "Smile, cook, kiss him, sign what he gives you, then bring it all to me." I swallowed hard. "So, I pretend to be the wife he thinks I still am?" "Yes," she said, "until you have control." It felt like acting in a play I never auditioned for. But as I walked out of that office, I felt sharper. I had something he didn't think I'd ever have: leverage. A weapon wrapped in silence. That night, I greeted Marcus with a smile. I made his favorite meal. I laughed at a joke that wasn't funny. When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. I played my role perfectly, because he thought I was clueless, thought I was weak, thought he was the only one holding the cards. But he didn't know that I'd already started building the fire under his feet. All I had to do now was wait for the match. It happened on a quiet Thursday evening, the kind of night where nothing seemed out of place. Marcus came home early for once, unusually attentive, his arms full of takeout and a bottle of wine. I knew what was coming. I could feel the setup. Too sweet, too smooth. We sat at the table like any other couple. He poured the wine, made small talk, told a story about someone at work. I nodded, laughed, played along. I even reached out to touch his hand. Then, as if it were a casual afterthought, he pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "Oh, babe, almost forgot," he said, handing it to me with a practiced smile. "These are just the final documents for the property transfer. Nothing serious, just some legal restructuring makes more sense for tax purposes." He slid a pen across the table. "Just sign where I marked. It's all standard. I already spoke to the lawyer about it." I took the folder with steady hands. Inside, I saw what looked like a familiar document: our shared home, 2 plots of land, the joint store lease. His version transferred all rights to a holding company under his name. But I didn't flinch. I smiled. "You always take care of the boring stuff," I said softly. "Thank you." What Marcus didn't know was that I already had a near identical set of papers prepared by Tola, my lawyer. Same formatting, same stamp, same structure, but with key changes. The assets would be frozen under mutual trust until legal proceedings were complete. Nothing could be sold, moved, or transferred without my consent. I stood up, walked to the bedroom under the excuse of needing to grab my reading glasses, and switched the documents. The folder I brought back looked the same, but it wasn't. Sitting back at the table, I signed the pages with careful strokes. He watched me closely, then signed as well. His signature locked the whole thing in place. I slid the folder back to him and kissed him on the cheek. He looked satisfied, even smug. "See? Easy. Very," I replied. Inside, I could barely hear my own thoughts over the rush of adrenaline. He believed he had won, that I had blindly handed him everything, but what I had really given him was the rope, and soon he would pull it tight around his own neck. I kept smiling, cooking, laughing when he cracked his tired jokes, all while swallowing the bitter taste in my throat. I let him believe I was none the wiser, that his charm still worked on me. But behind those hollow smiles, I was sharpening every edge of my silence. One night, Marcus claimed he had a late strategy meeting at his office. He kissed me on the forehead and said he'd be back by midnight. I nodded, pretending to believe him. But this time, I didn't stay home. I waited 20 minutes, then grabbed the spare keys and slipped out. I stayed a few cars behind him, careful not to get too close. I'd done my research, practiced the route, planned the exits. He drove right past his office and into a quiet residential estate across town, one I knew too well. He parked. I watched from the shadows as he walked up to the front door of a duplex and knocked once. Kiara opened it, my best friend since childhood. She smiled the same smile she once wore at my wedding, only this time it was for my husband. He stepped inside and the door closed behind him. I didn't cry. I just sat there, numb, letting the weight of it settle. 2 days later, I planted a small bug under his dashboard, something I'd bought online weeks ago and tested more times than I could count. Every time Marcus went driving, I listened. Each drive to Kiara's house gave me more than just proof of betrayal. It gave me his voice, his plans, his arrogance. "I've got her right where I want her," he said once. "By the time she realizes what happened, it'll be too late." And then, "Kiara, baby, just be patient. Once the house is under my name, we're good. I'll give her some payout to keep her quiet. Nothing she can do." Each recording built a stronger wall of evidence. Adultery, fraud, premeditated deception. I stored them all, sent copies to Tola, labeled and time-stamped. Kiara's voice too was damning, laughing, mocking me, talking about how I was too soft and how Marcus could twist me like ribbon. I didn't react. I just waited, gathering every stone I'd need to bring their whole world down. Because while they were tangled in their secrets between the sheets, I was already building the fire underneath their bed. I didn't rush my revenge. I wanted it clean, surgical. No yelling, no scenes, just consequences, one precise cut at a time. I picked a Saturday morning when I knew Kiara's husband, Dio, would be home. He was a quiet man, the type who paid attention to detail. I sent him an unmarked envelope with a USB drive inside. No letter, no explanation, just the truth. All the recordings, especially the ones where Kiara laughed about how easily Marcus manipulated me, were loaded on that drive. At the same time, Marcus's business partner, Chuka, received an email from a private address with select clips. Marcus discussing shady asset movement and bragging about bypassing legal procedures. I made sure the timestamp and location metadata were intact, irrefutable. Then I waited. By Sunday evening, the storm had started. Kiara's husband was the first to react. He showed up at their church, walking out midway through service with their 2 kids, and never looked back. I heard from a mutual friend that he filed for divorce the next morning and removed her name from all their joint accounts. Chuka called Marcus into an urgent board review on Monday. Apparently the partners were furious. The recordings raised serious legal questions, and investors were already spooked. They couldn't afford scandal. I didn't need to dig further. I knew Marcus's image was crumbling from the inside. By the time he walked through our front door that night, his tie was loose and his eyes were bloodshot. He called my name once, then again, louder. I didn't answer. He found me in our bedroom, calmly folding his clothes into a suitcase. His framed awards were already packed, his expensive watch collection laid out like evidence. On the bed sat a thick white envelope, his eviction notice, processed and signed. He froze. What is this?" I looked up at him, my face steady, voice calm. This is me setting the house back in order. You can't do this, he barked. This is my house. No, I said. It was ours. But you tried to take it from me behind my back. Now you don't get to keep any of it. He opened the envelope and scanned the contents. Panic bloomed across his face. You forged. I recorded you, I said. And I let you sign your own trap. And just like that, Marcus realized the empire he tried to steal had already crumbled beneath his own 2 hands. He slammed the bedroom door so hard the walls shook. What the hell do you think you're doing? He roared, stepping into my space like he used to, all fury and intimidation. I didn't flinch. I was seated at my desk, calmly organizing documents into neat folders. His packed suitcase sat by the wall. The room smelled of lavender, not war, but I knew what was coming. You went behind my back? He growled. You think you can throw me out of my own house? I stood slowly. You mean the house you were planning to take from me, after I signed over everything? His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, I said, walking over to the drawer and pulling out a slim black folder. See, I made copies of everything. The forged documents, the bank records, the divorce drafts from 3 months ago. He grabbed the folder from my hand, flipping through it with trembling fingers. This means nothing. You can't prove anything. I can. I turned to the dresser and pulled out a small flash drive, then slid it into the TV's USB port. The screen lit up. I hit play. There he was, Marcus, sitting in his car, voice clear and arrogant. Once she signs over the last asset, I'm done. She'll never see it coming. The room went dead silent. His breath hitched. You bugged me? I nodded once. And you made it easy. All I had to do was act like the fool you believed I was. He lunged forward suddenly, knocking papers off the table. You don't get to do this to me. I built everything. I took care of you. No, Marcus, I said, stepping back, calm in my voice but fire in my chest. You built a lie, and I saw through it. He stared at me, eyes wild, chest heaving. Then, like a wave breaking, his rage cracked. Amara, please, don't do this. We can fix this. No, Marcus, you broke it. He dropped to the edge of the bed, face in his hands. The man who once moved through life with unshakable pride now looked like a boy caught in his own trap. I stood above him, not in triumph, but in clarity. He had gambled with my trust, and lost. Now, all that remained was the cost. The morning after the meltdown, I walked into my attorney's office with a calm that surprised even me. Every folder, every flash drive, every printout of Marcus's betrayal was neatly stacked in my hands. No shaking fingers, no second guessing, just quiet resolve. My lawyer, Ms. Nenna, smiled when she saw me. Are we ready? She asked. Yes, I said, handing over the documents. He thought he was playing chess. I brought the checkmate. We filed for divorce that same day, citing financial deceit, emotional cruelty, and marital fraud. Within 72 hours, a motion was granted to freeze all joint assets pending a full review. Marcus received the notification via email and certified mail. I imagined him reading it alone, his empire unraveling, powerless to stop it. But it didn't end there. My attorney submitted the audio recording and the forged contracts to the appropriate financial authorities. An official investigation was launched, quietly at first, then with visible force. Marcus's bank transactions were flagged. His business partners were subpoenaed. The signature on the property transfer documents didn't match mine, and worse for him, his did. A week later, he was served at his office. Witnesses said he turned pale as the officers walked in, briefcases in hand. His name, once spoken with admiration in corporate circles, began to carry a bitter aftertaste. His company's board held an emergency meeting. Investors pulled back. His name was scrubbed from press releases. He tried to call me. I didn't answer. When the preliminary ruling came in, I was granted full control of the remaining assets, our house, our investments, and the company shares he had tried to hide. The court acknowledged his pattern of calculated deception, and the judge made it clear this wasn't a woman scorned. This was a woman wronged and armed with proof. One of the most surreal moments came when I opened the news on my phone and saw his face on a financial blog under the headline, "Rising Star Under Fire for Fraud, Infidelity, and Asset Tampering." I didn't smile. I just closed the tab and turned off my phone. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Not because I won in court, but because I had finally stopped playing small to protect a man who never planned to protect me. I left the house on a quiet Sunday morning. No dramatic farewell, no lingering glances, just me, my suitcase, and a peace I hadn't felt in years. The same suitcase I carried when I overheard the truth at the doorway was now filled with only the essentials. I didn't want the furniture, the photos, or the memories soaked into those walls. I wanted my life back. My new apartment was smaller, brighter. The windows opened to a gentle breeze and birdsong instead of tension and lies. I started therapy 2 weeks in, sat across from a kind-eyed woman who helped me find my voice again. Not the voice that bent and broke to keep the peace, but the one that had been buried beneath fear and manipulation. I filled my space with fresh flowers, soft blankets, and silence that healed instead of hurt. No one watched my every move. No one lied to my face. One morning, sunlight streamed through the open window as I stood at the door, keys in hand. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because I had survived, reclaimed, and rebuilt. And this time, when I closed the door, it felt like the beginning, not the end. Do you think walking away with nothing but peace was the best decision? Or should she have stayed and fought for more? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next one.